of lore. Thank you for joining me for this installment of the March of the Machine storyline. Now, this part is actually going to take multiple chunks of the story and combine them together because it works better that way. So this is actually 2 installments together at once, and they are doing some construction on my building. So if you hear some banging in the background, just pretend that that's some Phyrexians trying to get into your home while I'm telling you the story. Now, this part of the story actually follows Elspeth. You'll remember in the previous storyline, the last time we saw Elspeth, she was taking the just activated Silex from Jace, and then she hurtled out through the blind eternities to some location outside of them, and that was the last that we heard of her. Well, now we find her in that location somewhere beyond the blind eternities, and she's being given visions and tests of her past life and the current world and what's going on. And a voice is explaining to her that she has to make an ultimate choice. She's shown Phyrexia smashing different planes of existence. She sees Atraxa raining death down upon her home of New Capenna, maestros flying through the sky. But she also could see that Capenna would ultimately survive this. And there were people fighting back. She was shown Theros, where Meletus had already caused the conversion of 3 of Theros' gods, and they were now Phyrexians. This tested her in a different way. If she was to return to Theros, not only could she fight back against Phyrexia, but she could also see her long-lost love Daxos. But she'd be forced to slay a Johnny who she desperately wanted to save. She was confronted with these visions and challenges of multiple planes until sickeningly they settled in New Phyrexia in view of the World Tree. And at the base of the World Tree was Elish Norn, and she had Urabrask tied to a wheel, and the wheel is tearing him apart. Norn snaps her fingers, and then Urabrask is cut into pieces and carried off. And then before Norn, Koth, Chandra, and a treeless wren are all brought in bloody and beaten, pushed forwards by a half-melted Nissa. Behind Norn's throne, Karn's dismembered head floated atop a platform that prevented him from planeswalking. Elspeth watched as Norn commanded Jin-Gitaxias to complete the planeswalkers they had captured. And then time stopped. The voice told Elspeth she had to make her choice. She could only choose one place to be and one moment, and that decision has to be made now. Elspeth decides that it has to be Norn, and the voice took physical form, a beautiful but sad woman. Elspeth asks who she is, and the woman says, "I'm someone that you once knew." And she urged Elspeth to be certain of her choice. And Elspeth thought of a Johnny and her home of New Capenna and the different planes that she had seen. And ultimately, this reaffirmed her belief that stopping Norn would save the most lives. Elspeth declared once again that she would stop Norn, and knowledge and power were imparted to her by the mysterious woman who turned out to actually be the planeswalker Sarah. Elspeth happens to be a descendant of the people from Sarah's realm, and Sarah's blessing transformed her. Her wounds healed, and majestic heavy wings sprouted from Elspeth's back. They felt right to her. Time unfroze, and when Jin-Gitaxias started to move again, Elspeth was there barring the way, and the force of her appearance bowled nearby Phyrexians out of the way. Jin-Gitaxias scrambles backwards as Norn shouts out in rage and fear, but Elspeth ignores Norn as if she's a petulant child who's just acting out, and starts to heal the walkers in front of her. Norn is not willing to accept this affront and literally smashes her throne, takes a big chunk of it, and hurls it up at Elspeth. But Elspeth doesn't even bother to look at her as the chunk of throne bursts to pieces harmlessly when it hits Elspeth's wings. This makes the assembled Phyrexians uneasy and uncertain. They start to pull back. Koth is now healed up from Elspeth's help, and he slams his fist into the ground, firing up magma everywhere and shouting a rallying cry to the Mirrans. Now Norn is in a frenzy and losing control. She is hurling more throne chunks, severed heads, anything she can get her hands on, even a horn that she snapped off of Vorinclex, are being thrown at Elspeth. Norn didn't manage to land a single hit now that Elspeth was no longer distracted. At this point, Jin-Gitaxias wants to flee to safety and wants Norn to go with him. But Norn considers this blasphemy. While all this is happening, Ren tells Chandra they need to move now and go to Realmbreaker. So Chandra scoops her up and they start to move. At the same time, Koth uses his stone magic to draw the platform with Karn's head on it over to him. Chandra and Ren didn't make it very far before Nissa intercepted them. Drop the Dryad or I'll kill you. Back with Elspeth, Norn ends up grabbing Elspeth's leg and pulls her from the air, smashing her down into the ground. While Elspeth regained her footing, Norn pulled broken bits of all the Phyrexians around her into grisly armor. Elspeth uses her sword of pure light to blast Norn's shoulder. The armor there falls away, and Norn's shoulder is actually smoking from a hole that's left there. Elspeth leapt into the air and flew to aid Chandra, but Norn threw up a wall of alabaster plating that rose up endlessly all the way to the ceiling. And at the same time, Norn lashed Elspeth's wings. Elspeth slashed at Norn, freeing herself, and realizing she would need to deal with her, descended down, and they started to trade blows until Jin-Gitaxias gets impatient. He calls to Norn, "Complete her and let us be on our way." This was the wrong thing to say. Norn, enraged, turns on Jin-Gitaxias and tears his arms off. While she's doing that, Elspeth takes the opportunity to drive her sword into Elish Norn's wounded shoulder. This causes Norn for the first time ever to stop using the royal we when speaking, and instead says to Elspeth, "I hate you." Elspeth talks about how it's never been about Phyrexia. It's always been about Elish Norn. And while this is happening, thousands of Phyrexians are descending on the Mirrans that are over by Realmbreaker. Melira falls, Koth cries out, and Elspeth again decides to aid her friends. She launches herself at the wall that Norn has created and blasts through it with concentrated light, while Norn imperiously demands that she returns and resumes their fight. All right, my friends, that ends this installment of the March of the Machine storyline. The story doesn't end here, so come on back tomorrow to hear some more of it. In the meantime, go enjoy some more stories on this channel. Big thank you to this channel's members and patrons for supporting the channel. If you like what we're doing here, you can join our Patreon or the channel membership. I will see you all next time, and in the meantime, remember, my friends, lore is life.